Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's session. I'm just going to wait a few minutes. I'm on the line also with Heather. She has herself hidden right now. She's going to be the moderator, so you might see someone else come up in the chat. But just for now, just let me know who's on the line and where you're from, and we'll just take a few minutes and we'll just hold tight for a minute. Hopefully we get a few more people. I think now with just the return to work on the different bases, there might be less people joining these webinars. So. Oh, we have two people. Hello, good morning. We're just going to wait another minute here. Good morning, Jessa. It might be a small group today, but that's okay. All right, so I think I'll just get started, and then if we get more people that join the line, that'll be good. So if you haven't seen me before in a webinar, my name is Nicole Emerson. I'm one of the health promotion specialists in Edmonton. I was on a few webinars with Heather and Carissa. We did the Appetite for Change. They added me in halfway through their session as I just returned from a maternity leave. So I chose the topic today because of it kind of something that I gravitated to, thinking about this new landscape with COVID and how everyone is coping with it. It's been challenging times, and we need to prioritize our well-being. And self-care is something that maybe doesn't get talked about enough and needs to be really promoted, especially in times like these, but all the time. And for myself, working from home with two young children is something that I've really kind of had to keep in check and check in with myself. So so that's why I chose the topic on self-care and building resiliency through self-care. So self-care, it's not a luxury. And oftentimes when we think of that term self-care, we might think of maybe going to a spa or doing something really special for ourselves. But it needs to be something that is something that we do every day. It's a necessity. And when life gets crazy, when life gets busy, our balance goes a little off a little bit. So we have so many competing priorities, or we might have some more stressors going on, and we look for maybe some quick fixes or solutions to how we're feeling to get through the day. So building self-care into your daily and weekly routine is going to greatly improve your resilience and prevent burnout. So if you've joined one of our webinars before, you've probably seen this several times, but I'm just going to give it a quick read through. So the presentation you're about to view is the intellectual property of the Department of National Defense. Any reproduction or retransmission of the slides contained in this presentation is strictly forbidden. Some of the topics discussed in this webinar may be of sensitive nature and may not be appropriate for children, so parental discretion is requested. For this webinar, we're pretty safe, but just to keep that in mind if you have little ones around. Please understand that people's stories are theirs alone to tell, and anything that is shared by participants in this webinar, either on camera or in chat, is not to be discussed outside of this webinar. This webinar is being recorded and will be available for later viewing on calfconnection.ca. Though active participation is encouraged, you may simply follow along without using the chat or microphone or video options if you prefer. Alrighty. So we're going to do our first poll for today and get to know where or how everyone is affiliated with the CAF. So Heather just brought that up. So we have, oh, perfect, 2 serving members. All right. Now I'm going to get you to answer this question. Just a quick check-in to see how you're doing today. So Heather's just going to bring that up. So if you're happy and content, maybe you're feeling playful, maybe just meh, kind of in between, maybe you're feeling a little overwhelmed, or maybe you're feeling tired. So whichever one you can maybe relate to the most, I'll get you to choose that. Tired? Yeah, I'm tired too. So the reason I'm getting you to think about this, 100% tired. So maybe we'll work that into our self-care strategies, and I'll do that as well. So you might have seen this model before. It's the mental health continuum model. And it's a way of checking in with ourselves to increase self-awareness around our own well-being. So it's a way for us to say, you know, how am I doing today? Am I functioning well? Am I struggling? Do I have some things going on that maybe I need to deal with? Do I have some warning signs? So when we react to stress, we typically show signs that indicate that we need to employ some additional coping strategies to maintain our mental fitness, to maintain that resilience. So those coping strategies can be around that self-care, and it could be maybe going to maybe a professional organization or somewhere to get some additional supports. So it's important to be aware of these signs so that we're able to do something early. So the earlier that we can intervene, the better outcome we're going to get. But knowing that this is a model and it's a fluid model, so even if we get into that functioning varies or we're not functioning very well, we can still get back to that green. It just is going to take maybe a little bit longer and more supports to get there. So if we progress through that model, there's certain things that we might notice in that progression that's indicating to us that we're not doing well. So the model illustrates things like maybe changes in our mood, maybe some attitude changes, maybe we're not sleeping as well. So maybe that's an indicator that something's going on. Some physical symptoms might be coming up. Maybe socially we're not wanting to connect as much. Or there could be substance use, and maybe it's becoming a little bit more problematic. So we're going to take a look at that in a little bit more detail. with the stress signals. So how do you know when you are starting to feel stressed? What is the first thing that maybe happens to you where you're like, yeah, something's going on. Maybe you feel it. For me, it's I start to feel a little bit of muscle tension in my neck or in my back. Or I'll notice that my jaw is starting to ache because I'm clenching my teeth. So those are indicators that, yeah, something is going on here. Maybe I should check in with myself. So there's lots of ways that your body is going to signal to you that something's going on. And it's telling you that maybe you're at the edge or maybe you're at risk of going over the edge and you need to maybe figure out what's happening or what's causing that to happen. So you might notice physically, it could be that shortness of breath. Heather says I get clenching teeth too, just as an anxious feeling. So yeah, clenching teeth is really common. Another classic indicator is that muscle tension and where we're holding it, that sore back. Headaches might be coming up more often. Heartburn, upset stomach. In terms of behavior, there could be changes in eating. So it could be that generally with chronic stress, we tend to eat more emotionally, whereas that acute stress or that immediate stressor, we tend to maybe lose our appetite in the moment of that stress. So we're not maybe eating as much or maybe not able to eat at all. There might be more substance use, or that could include gaming or gambling, things like that, grinding teeth, nail biting, procrastination, all just little indicators, little signs that something's going on. Emotionally, there might be some more nervousness, anxiety. Maybe you're feeling more irritable, maybe more sensitive, where someone says something and you snap and you react in some way, or maybe be more impatient. And cognitively, maybe you're finding that you're not able to concentrate as well, or you're forgetting things more often where you wouldn't have normally forgotten those things, or maybe feeling confused or worrying more often. So with these indicators, not to say that we shouldn't experience them, because a lot of these, they're normal and they're part of our, again, when we're living our life, we're going to experience those things happen in the day. We have bad moments or moments in the day where we experience those things, but then we're able to recover. So the issue is if you get stuck in those things. So if you're noticing that these signals are coming up more often, if they're starting to become chronic, and now you're moving down that continuum. So again, recognizing them earlier is better in order to deal with the core issue and what's happening. So I really liked this quote when we're thinking about self-care. So an empty lantern provides no light. Self-care is the fuel that allows your light to shine brightly. So again, thinking about that continuum, as someone progresses from that green to the red, that light is starting to dim and eventually go out because that self-care maybe isn't happening, or is just no longer able to be a priority for that person while they're under that stress. So I want you to think about, what do you do? And just, you can answer in the chat. What do you do right now for self-care? What fuels your light? For me, I take my dog for a walk. Walk in nature and breathe. Hiking in nature for me. For Heather, reading at home, facials and bubble baths. Yeah, that'd be nice. Physical activity, awesome. And working out, yeah. So there's lots of things that, we're going to naturally gravitate to. We know that we feel better when we do those things, and we're going to do them when we feel like we need them, and maybe as often as we can. So I'm going to ask you, the next question in the poll is, I make self-care a priority every day. So Heather's just going to bring that up. So it's always, sometimes, or never. Always and sometimes, yeah. And it's challenging. So when you think about, knowing how good we feel when we do that self-care, the exercising or going out in nature or taking a bubble bath, there's things that are naturally going to maybe get in the way of that. And maybe it bumps down that priority. So we'll take a look at that a little bit more. But ideally, yeah, we want to try to make that a regular part of our routine as often as we can. So when we're looking at what self-care is and what it's not. So self-care is a deliberate act that we take. So it's taking care of ourselves mentally, physically, and emotionally. The World Health Organization defines it as the ability of individuals and communities to promote and maintain health and prevent disease. And they also elaborate on that. So they're including hygiene, nutrition, lifestyle, environmental, and socioeconomic factors. So, but knowing how important it is to our psychological and our physical health, prioritizing it when we're stressed sometimes can be hard, challenging it because we have all these other stressors and competing priorities, that the things that we know that we need to do in order to keep ourselves well might start to get bumped down. Self-care needs to be something that is something that we enjoy. If we don't enjoy it, then it's not going to fill us up. So it should be something that fills you up rather than takes away from you. And it also isn't selfish. And that comes up a lot where people might feel that if I take this time for me, if I schedule this in and make a commitment to myself, I feel bad because I'm not there for someone else. But we also know that by doing that for ourselves, we're better able to be there for the people that we care about. We can't pour from an empty cup. So we need to make sure that we're employing those skills and we're taking care of ourselves so that we're able to help the ones and be there for the ones that we love or that we work with and to help them. So in a few words, self-care is the key to living a balanced and healthy life. And now looking at how it relates to resiliency. And I wanted to start with an analogy with resilience because I thought it really kind of spoke to what it is. So if you imagine you're going on a rafting trip and you have a map and you're looking at the river that you're going to be going down, and you can see that, okay, I'm going to hit some shallow waters, there's going to be some rapids, it's going to be rough here, some sharp turns. What are you going to do to make sure that you travel safely down that river? So you might do things like talk to an experienced rafter, or you might get someone to come along with you to help you navigate that river. You might get an extra life jacket, or you might get an extra durable raft to make sure that you get through it. But whatever you do, you're going to be able to get through that challenging times with the tools and supports that you have. So when you get through that challenge, not only have you gotten through it, but you're also confident or built up your confidence in that you're able to do that. So life doesn't come with a map. We can't map out the rapids and the sharp turns and the things that are going to happen. But we know that they're going to happen. We know that there's twists and turns and events happen, and sometimes they can be traumatic, and we need to find ways in order to cope with that. And generally people can adapt to these life-changing situations, and a lot of it depends on that resiliency and what they have in that resiliency bank in order to deal with that. So when we think about resilience, by definition, it's the ability to recover from situations and adjust easily to adversity. So whether that adversity is trauma or tragedy or threats or significant sources of stress, and dealing with change. So in simple terms, it's our ability to bounce back. But what happens is that when our adaptability is challenged, so if we're not doing the things that we need to do in our day-to-day self-care to take care of that resilience, our ability to bounce back becomes challenged. So as we move through that continuum, for example, someone that might be in that yellow to orange, getting into that red zone, that ability to bounce back from maybe a change or something that happens in their life, a significant event, is going to be much more difficult to do. So in terms of, are you born with it? So resilience isn't necessarily a trait that only some people have. It involves behaviors, thoughts, and actions that we can learn and we can develop. So it's like building a muscle. Increasing your resiliency takes time and it's intentional. And a key part of that is that wellness piece and that self-care, making sure that we have that in order to maintain that resilience. And again, there's lots more to that resiliency piece as well. So I really liked this analogy, and it's something that has stuck with me. So I heard this many years ago, and what this individual was describing was imagining all the things that you have going on in your life, and it could be your stressors, your priorities, the things that are important to you, and they're all represented as these balls that you're juggling. So we're juggling all these things in our life. And some of these balls are more durable. So if we were to drop them, they're not going to be damaged. We can pick them up. Whereas some of these balls are like those, or priorities, are like these Christmas bulbs that if they fall too many times, they're eventually going to crack. So when we think about that self-care piece, self-care is being able to manage all those things that we're juggling. So it's knowing which balls we can set down or let fall, and they're not going to be damaged, and the ones that we really need to protect. So the things like taking care of our health or our family, aspects of our career. If we drop those too many times, it's going to be harder to repair, and eventually that damage might not be able to be repaired. So we really need to make sure that we're protecting those priorities, but also recognizing all those other things that are going on, that not everything needs to be up in the air, juggled all at once. Some of those things can be set down so that we can protect those other ones. So for self-care strategies, these were the ones that stuck out the most for me. And the first one is kind of funny to think of the first one as being saying no, but I think it's really, really important in terms of protecting your time and your energy and setting those boundaries. So protecting your time and your energy is going to ensure that you do the things that you want to do, the things that are important to you and your goals. If we're always, so essentially it's finding a balance between helping others without depleting your time and your energy, which is hard because naturally, by nature, we want to help and be there for others and the ones that we care about. But if we're constantly saying yes to them, then we're not having that time for ourselves to take care of ourselves. So by setting these boundaries, it can make decisions about requests for your time and energy a little bit easier because you've already set that boundary. So for example, for myself, I make Sundays my family day. So on Sunday, my device is off. I'm not looking at email. There's no work connection. It's my family time. I protect that time as best as I can. So that that's something that's important to me. That's one of those Christmas bulbs that I need to protect. And yeah, the odd time where something's going to come up and something is going to be asked of me, but it's not a regular occurring thing. So it's something that I protect. So by fulfilling or by saying no, you're fulfilling your yes commitments and the things that you want to do. And sometimes it takes an awkward conversation too. And in that communication, it's hard to say no. And if you find that challenging to do, it's definitely something to work on and to practice doing, because it is so valuable. And oftentimes you'll find that people respect that when you're able to say no. And there's ways of doing that and ways of saying no where it doesn't just come across as just a flat out no, but sometimes you need to do that as well. So for the next one, with finding humor. So again, when we're stressed, it's hard to laugh. It's hard to find the humor in things when, everything is maybe not going as well or is challenging. But having that humor and being able to laugh gives us perspective from that stressor. Can you remember the last time you really laughed, like a deep belly laugh? And you can just answer in the chat, yes or no, if you can remember that. I don't know if I can remember. I know with 2 young children, they laugh all day, every day. And that's something that, okay, Jessica says no. When we compare adults to kids laugh way more than adults. And I think part of it is that I think we get stuck in our heads and we take things seriously. And it's harder to find those moments to laugh, but it's so important. And it can really help to diffuse a lot of that stress when we're able to take a moment and find the humor in something and be able to laugh at ourselves or the situation. So for the next one, with implementing the triad. So I won't spend a whole lot of time with these 3 because we have had webinars on nutrition, exercise, and sleep. But just knowing that each one impacts the other. So if we're not sleeping well, that's likely going to impact our food choices. And if we're not eating well, that's going to impact our ability to exercise and do well in our performance. And it's going to become this vicious cycle that way. Or if we're doing things well, then it's going to benefit us in a better way. So in terms of nutrition, doing things like making sure that we're not missing meals or skipping meals, that we're eating balance, that we are hydrating ourselves throughout the day, especially where we are here. And I think most of the country is in quite a heat wave right now. So we need to make sure that we're drinking enough fluids throughout the day. And that's going to help with our overall wellness and preventing heat-related illness. But also making sure that we're not consuming too much caffeine and anything that's just going to add to that stress. When we're already feeling stressed and then we add caffeine to that just gets the jitters going and it doesn't really help the cause. So being able to manage that is important as well. For exercise, it's doing the things that is going to motivate you. So if you don't like to run and you plan to run every day, then it's probably not going to be a very fun run for you. So doing the things that gets you motivated, that you like doing, and doing it as often as you can is really important. And for sleep, so considering things that is going to help your sleep hygiene. We know that when we're not sleeping well, it's really going to impact all areas of our life. We're not going to be able to concentrate well or problem solve or maybe function in the things that we normally would function well in, because especially if it's a prolonged chronic condition, it's going to have an impact. So things to consider would be, what do you do in the 1 hour before you go to bed? Is it things that helps to promote sleep? Or is it activities that are maybe ramping you up and making it harder to fall asleep? So things like watching TV or being on your phone or getting into a heated conversation might hinder that ability to wind down and fall asleep. Whereas maybe taking a bath or taking a shower, reading a book, maybe meditating if you like that, or stretching, and setting up that bedtime routine like we do with children that is conducive to sleep. So it signals to the body that, okay, now it's time to go to sleep, and it helps to fall asleep. So having that's not only the amount of sleep, so the 7 to 8 hours is important, but also the quality of sleep that we're getting is important too. So thinking about sleep environment is, do I have light coming into my room? Do I need blackout curtains or an eye mask, or should I be wearing earplugs to block out noise? Things like that can help to improve that sleep quality. So for the next one, building and protecting me time. So again, when we think about those boundaries, we might have every intention on making that self-care a priority every day. Maybe you wanted to answer that question. I always make self-care a priority. But things come up in our life, and maybe that gets set off to the side because we have these other commitments, which is natural and is going to happen. But when you think about, when you make a commitment to someone else, like a friend or a colleague, we don't typically want to break those commitments. We want to be there. We want to follow through with those. Or if we made, let's say, a medical appointment, we're going to show up for that. So we also need to think about self-care in the same way, where we're going to show up for ourselves. So it needs to be something that we actively plan. We can't expect it always just to just happen unless we plan for it. So it could be that you add it into your calendar, you announce to maybe the people that you're close to, your friends or your family, that this is what I'm going to be doing. And you make that commitment to yourself to make it as often as possible to be able to do that. Practicing self-compassion. So the next piece to that is, don't be hard on yourself if you did not practice self-care that day. It's okay. So that having that self-compassion is simply being kind to ourselves. So thinking about how you would talk to another person, right? We would use maybe that kinder, gentler language, whereas for ourselves, we're more self-critical and, oh, I can't believe I didn't do that. Why didn't I do that? So being more compassionate with ourselves is really going to help with our overall wellness, so that it improves our mental health, it improves our resilience, and it better allows us to stick with those habits. So eating well, exercise, managing stress, being able to follow through with those things are a lot easier when we have that self-compassion. And then for the final one, the relaxation strategies and deep breathing. So thinking about having at least one relaxing activity every day. So something that you're able to do, and it doesn't have to be something that's time consuming. You can start with even a minute, but something that's going to help to unwind you would be really important to start implementing. Does anyone do that already? Practice relaxation? So we'll talk about it a little bit more in a second, but it's definitely a skill that is worth implementing if it's not already being done. So when we think about deep breathing, I like to think about, so if someone was having a panic attack, so they're breathing really quickly, really shallow, what would be the first thing that we say to them? It would be, take a deep breath. Okay, so as you're sitting there, if you're able to, I'll get you to put one hand just up here on your chest and one hand on your belly, and just take a deep breath in through your nose. And then let it out. So there's a few things that you may notice when you do that. Depending on where your hand is. You might notice that when you take that deep breath in, your heart rate goes up a little. And then as you exhale, your heart rate slows down. So that exhale helps relax you. And another thing you should notice too is which hand is rising when you take that deep breath. So when you breathe in, ideally we want to imagine we have a balloon in our belly. So as we're breathing in, that balloon is filling up with air and our hand on our belly is rising. So that's that deep breath that's giving us the best benefit. If we're feeling that our chest is rising, then that's indicating that it's more of a shallow breath, and we need to start focusing on that deeper breath and filling our diaphragm with air and letting that out. So that's what's going to give us the best results. And again, as we age, we tend to become more of that shallow breather. When we look at a baby sleep, you'll notice that their bellies are going up and down and they're breathing that nice deep breath. And we want to try to implement that again. And like any kind of a relaxation strategy, it's a skill that needs to be practiced. So it's not necessarily something that is going to always click in if we're not making the point to practice it. If we're practicing taking a moment every day, and again, it can be a minute, it could be a few seconds, just to take that deep breath and focus on our breathing. When we're in that stressful time and we need to employ that deep breath to help to counteract that stress response, it becomes easier to do because it's something that we've practiced. So let's talk about, okay, I see Jessica said not daily too. I think that was the question about relaxation. Yeah, it's something that, again, it's that nice to do, but doesn't always happen. So when you think about relaxation, if you were to do it, what would you do? What would be a relaxation practice that maybe you would gravitate to? Maybe it could be that breathing. Is there anything else that you guys do? I see that Heather wrote 5-minute meditation every morning through her Peloton app. Well, that's awesome. So there's a lot of apps out there too that, again, it's not something that maybe we don't know what to do for relaxation. So finding an app to follow along with something can be really helpful as well. Practicing breathing. Yeah, that's a common one. And that's an easy one for us. We don't really need to have anything or any scripts or anything. We can just take that breath and it's easy to practice. So things like abdominal breathing, if you've done a progressive muscle relaxation, so that's where you tense a large muscle group and you hold it in and relax it. That's another strategy. So you're working from your head to your toe typically. A guided imagery is another one. So you can just listen to, you can even just YouTube a guided imagery, and it takes you through that scenario, and it's just a way of escaping and taking that mental break. Meditation, yoga, doing any kind of a hobby that kind of slows down and you're not critical of yourself could be considered that relaxation. So anything that essentially doesn't hype us up is considered to be that relaxation. So sometimes leisure activities get confused with relaxation activities. So leisure activities are important and they burn off those stress hormones, but that relaxation activities is what's going to counteract that stress response and bring us back down to that baseline. So when we think of a leaky boat, if we have a hole in the boat and we have a bucket and the boat is filling up with water and I'm just emptying the water out of the boat with my bucket, that would be that leisure activity. So yeah, it's effective, but after a while, I need to do a little bit more. So that relaxation strategy is actually repairing the bucket, the hole in the bucket, or sorry, in the boat, and doing regular maintenance on the boat. So that would be that relaxation. So it's essentially a mind-body connection. So if we're calming our mind, we're calming our body, and vice versa. If we're calming our body doing an exercise, then we're essentially calming our mind. So it can work both ways. And it's typically being still, and it's purposeful. So it's not just going for a nap or watching TV, which might be part of those self-care pieces, which are important, but it's not necessarily relaxation. So being physically still and mentally focused is typically what's happening. And you could be focused on your breathing or on mindfulness or grounding, but essentially you're being present, and again, you're slowing down. So it's hard to do, and it's hard to quiet our minds, especially if we're sitting down and, okay, I want to meditate right now. I want to focus on my breathing, and I'm taking this breath, but now my mind is thinking about other things. I have my to-do list, or I need to start making supper, or I start thinking about a conversation I had with someone, and then your mind kind of takes off. And that's normal, and part of employing this relaxation and starting to do it is training our minds how to recognize when that happens, but let go of that. So we're not going to get caught up in all of our thoughts and let it distract us. We're just going to let them happen, observe them, but we're going to let them go and continue on with that relaxation. So it is driven by, the relaxation response is driven by a different part of the brain than the stress response. So that's how it counteracts that stress response. So the more that we do it, the more benefits we're going to see from it. All right, and now I have a handout for you. I think Heather might, if she's there, she'll bring it up for us. All right, so this handout, it's a one-sided worksheet. And so what I did is I purposely did it that way so you could put it up somewhere where it's going to be visible for you. And it serves as a reminder of self-care practices that you're committing to. So at the top, it lists the 3 things that you're going to do or that you're currently doing for self-care. So it could be resources that you're using or strategies that you're using. And then also considering when and how and where and who's involved. And so coming up with that plan. But then on the bottom part is also giving many examples of different strategies that you can start incorporating, or maybe there's strategies that you see there that you're already doing. So giving them a circle, highlighting them, and again, making that commitment to start making that part of your routine. So it's just giving that reminder. So I thought we would do a quick breathing exercise. And this isn't very long. It's, I think, 1 minute and 11 seconds, but it gives you an opportunity just to practice that breathing. So what I'll get you to do is, wherever you are, if you're able to sit comfortably, just relax. I'll bring up the video and just follow along. So it's going to cue you to take some breaths and maybe close your eyes if you'd like. And then
Nicole, just remember to mute yourself.
Okay.
So sitting comfortably, just taking a big deep breath in through the nose, out through the mouth. As you breathe in, noticing how the body expands. As you breathe out, just watching the body soften as you gently close the eyes. And rather than the mind leading the breath, allow the breath to lead the mind. Notice the sensation of the breath. Notice it where you feel it in the body. If you need to, you can just gently place your hand on the stomach. And just following that rising and falling sensation. Nothing else to do. Allowing thoughts to come and go. And when you're ready, just gently opening the eyes again.
All right. So again, that came from another app, but it's a starting point. So just thinking about taking those deep breaths, letting your mind focus on that, and letting go of all those intrusive thoughts. And you can do that for as long as you want, or again, if you have 1 minute in your day and that's the minute you're going to dedicate to taking those breaths, then that's a perfect start as well. So doing what's going to be manageable for you right now is really key. And then the final piece, which is so important, is knowing and accessing our supports. So if you could take a minute and think about or write down the names of people or resources that you know you can count on, that if you're having a hard time or you're feeling challenged in any way, you can pick up the phone and they're going to be there for you. Having a good support system is so crucial, and it needs to involve positive relationships. So the people that are going to build you up, and not the people that are going to break you down, obviously. And it's also important to accept help from others too. Someone might recognize that, hey, you're not doing so well. Maybe, can I help you in some way? And being able to accept that help is really important as well. We're social species and we're wired that way. So that social fitness, when we start to lose those connections, that's when things start to unravel much more quickly. And that's when maybe that progression through that continuum becomes more likely, because we don't have those connections anymore. So being able to maintain that and keep those connections is really important to have. And then with that too, part of self-care is recognizing when it's time to reach out and to access additional supports. Sometimes employing those self-care strategies isn't doing enough at that time, and now it's time to reach out a little bit further and to access one of these supports. So supports that you've probably seen several times if you've taken a lot of these webinars, but it's important to know about. So it's a sign of strength. It's a sign of, doing that extra step to take care of yourself and make sure that you're looked after, and also being aware of these resources for if you're helping anyone else as well is important to have in your back pocket. All right, so I'm going to bring up the final poll for today. Oh, we're almost at 50 minutes. So I feel I can apply what I learned today in my daily living. So hopefully if you planned on taking the full hour for this webinar and we're about 10 minutes early, you can take that last 10 minutes and do something for yourself. Take that time to do some self-care. And it was a pleasure to be on here today. And I hope that you all have a wonderful day, and we'll see you again. So if you have any questions, you can pop them up in the chat. And if not, this will be my wrap up right now. So again, thank you for joining today, and hopefully we'll see you again. So I'll stay on the line for a few minutes if anyone has anything to say. Thanks, Nikki.
Lauren left, and I believe Lauren likes to take a screenshot at the end to give to his boss to show he's been online. So maybe we can leave it for him now.
Sure. Lauren, if you need me to move it to a different slide too, just let me know and I can move the slide or change the slide.
Cool is after you log off, he gets sort of a set.
Oh, gotcha. So I need to log off. All right. Well, have a wonderful day, and I'll log off.